Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first session of Demystifying BVLOS DIB regulations and operations around the world. This is a two-part webinar series where, through sessions with regulatory experts, we hope to address all of your questions and concerns regarding BVLOS drone ops and waivers particular to your operating region. With a focus on the regulatory landscape, this session would give you a deeper understanding on how to conduct pilotless BVLOS flights while keeping safety in mind. Beyond visual line of sight operations are still a distant dream for many. Due to the difficulty, paper process that organizations need to go through, the potential of drones for long range operations are underutilized till date. Inspections of mines, pipelines, railway tracks, highways, and other similar assets that span thousands of kilometers are still yet to be normalized. To show you the way forward, we have Jackie, founder and CEO of Hover UAV. Hover UAV is an internationally recognized drone consultancy and systems management company. Jackie and her team have been involved in various groundbreaking projects such as conducting flight operations for Alphabet's Wing Drone Delivery Program, managing several first BVLOS flight approvals, and implementing the first NSW Shark surveillance flights. Jackie is also a board member of V Robotics AAUS and Safe Skies Australia. She was also an NSW Government Businesswoman of the Year finalist, Optus Businesswoman of the Year finalist, and Unmanned Aerial System Industry honoree. We also have Achal with us today. Achal is FlightBase's Director of Business Development and has several years of experience in working in the drone industry and with customers to help them deploy autonomous drone-in-a-box solutions. Towards the later part of the webinar, Achal will also help us understand how how the FlightNow software is enabling safety in BVLOS operations. With that, I hand it over to you, Jackie.
Thank you very much for the introduction. Look, I recently got to spend a bit of face-to-face time with some of the team at FlightBase, and it was absolutely lovely to find people with that, that similar vision of what it's going to look like, and also people that love talking about drone in the boxes as much as I did. So super excited to kick off Series 1 for the Demystifying BVLOS. So good afternoon to everyone that has joined from all around the world. It's great to have you online, especially the ones that are in Australia. I know that, the lead up to Christmas, I think it's the last week of school for many people. So there's lots of different events happening. So thank you so much for joining. Look, we have been, so as Indika mentioned, my name's Jackie, so I'm the CEO and founder of Hover. I've been in the drone industry now for about 7.5 years. I don't know where the time going. It still feels like I'm brand new to it. But look, my passion has been helping companies utilize drone technology to its full capacity. We just want to help companies navigate that regulatory waiver approval process, project manage new proofs of concept, and overall just be there to support that chief pilot or the organization. Over the last 7.5 years, we've been so grateful to work with so many amazing projects. So I might just flick to the next slide if we can as well. Although our offices are based, look, I'm sitting in nice, sunny, very hot Gold Coast today. We also do have offices in New Zealand, but we do support many companies through the South Pacific or globally as well. We work with individual operators, governments, and also some of the largest companies like Rio Tinto or Wing. We've been able to gain beyond visual line of sight, or true beyond visual line of sight, so without a visual observer flying from remote operation centres. We've created many long-range BVLOS approvals for surveillance, for like long linear inspections. We've also obtained BVLOS at airport environments now, and we've just, I know we haven't publicly gone over that, we've just completed having our BVLOS procedures validated with the Flight Safety Foundation and the BARS audit program as well. So we'll go to the new slide. So I know I have been on some of their webinars before, and I've spoken on BVLOS and SORA and a lot about risk. So today I'm going to try and mix it up slightly and look at the pathway of incorporating drone in the boxes to solve your problems, and the importance of understanding that overarching regulatory framework for your region when selecting the right hardware and software. So we all know that, so I'm just clicking the slides for a sec. Hang on. Give me 2 seconds. I'm just having a few technical issues. Just hang on 2 seconds. I'm back. Can't see that. All right. Have you got me again, Ashal?
Yes, Jackie, we have you.
Oh, sorry, I lost all my screens, so I couldn't even see where I was up to. So drone in the box is like such a hot topic at the moment. But what does it mean, and why should you incorporate it for your drone operation? Does it make sense? Really, a drone in the box is really just a secure home for your drone that is placed on a site. It holds automated charging capabilities, usually either with prong chargers that go into the side or battery swapping. It also holds communication systems that communicate to that pilot or the drone. Most boxes have some form of like geofiducials or barcode placed on them, or RTK to assist with that precision landing. So why is the drone in the box so important for growth of the drone industries? So we've seen over the last 7 years that the benefits of drones is here. And with drone in the box, it finally allows us to see the scale and that large cost savings that we've been able to see for systems, limiting people that need to travel to sites. We can also now operate, one-to-many operations as well. So for those that are fairly new to some of the terminology, because I do jump straight into like visual, BVLOS, one-to-many, things like that. Just quickly explain. So visual line of sight is where you are physically flying and you visually can see that drone. So you can control any of the risk to the air or the ground. Beyond visual line of sight with a visual observer, which is often how the FAA and some countries use it, or we call it extended visual line of sight, is flying beyond the pilot's visual line of sight, but there's a visual observer to help clear that air and the ground risk. BVLOS, or beyond visual line of sight, is where you're flying and you cannot see. You use other mitigations such as your software or different attachments to look after that risk of that air and the ground risk. Remote operations is when you're flying remotely from that drone, which we'll talk about today. And one-to-many is, if I talk about that, it's the pilot is the one flying multiple RPA or drones at the same time. So let me try to explain my vision. I think I need to go back to the slide before, if that's okay. Yeah, if we go back to this slide. So look, my vision doesn't mean it's always right, but what I'm going to see from my vision is it's not really matter about the hardware. Maybe hopefully all manufacturers aren't listening to this. It's like I can imagine we're sitting here on our office in Gold Coast and we're flying multiple drones of different type or ground robots all around the country. So I want to be able to find like a software or systems that allow us to do that. So if I'm flying, the DJI dock in, South Australia, or a Hexatronics box in Western Australia, I can be flying that at the one time. That's sort of how I envision how it's going to look, and a lot of how we set up the procedures today highlight that. So I might jump through the next slide. So whether it be mining, utilities, emergency services, construction, agriculture, I get asked the same questions over and over. What is the best drone and the box to buy? Look, realistically, I don't believe there's one perfect option out there that's going to solve everyone's needs. So I'm going to walk you through the process of how we work with clients on that initial stage of incorporating drone in the box. Well, I'm going to make it the abbreviated version because it does take a little while. This slide gives the overview of the BVLOS process for CASA. However, realistically, apart from some different terminology, it's not that different from other countries. It's very similar to New Zealand and some of the South Pacific countries that we already work with. So it's all the preparation. So we're looking at, the concept of operation, that SORA, that safety case we're going to talk a little bit about today, all the procedures that you are going to pull together, so all the preparation requirements. Then you put all the submission into your the regulator, you present that to them, then they do review back and forward. Often it's a flight test, and then you're given sort of an instrument or an approval or a waiver that allows you to then fly that beyond visual line of sight. So preparations, where we're going to spend most of our time talking today. So we're going to start looking at the concept of operation. So the very first question I'm going to ask a client is, what do you want to do? Where do you want to do it? And what do you plan to do with it? And from there, we can work out together how we can do it in a safe fashion. So next slide. So this is really simple concept of operations that we just often get asked. So I've just pulled that 3 that hopefully some of the people on today, they might fall into this. So we've got mining. You're often looking at, nadir or oblique photogrammetry or surveys. Often your sites, mine sites are quite controlled environments. They're usually in the middle of nowhere. Look, a lot of that can be flown within 100, less than 500 foot for the flight. But however, most mine sites, obviously there's a lot of fly in and fly out workers. So they're usually within 10 nautical miles from an airport. So that's sort of a risk we need to keep into account. So that's sort of that one concept of operation. Usually they want to operate fairly 7 days a week and throughout the whole day. Utilities are slightly different. They want to do, let's just say we're talking inspections of infrastructure. So, sewage or plants or, substations or anything like that. They're very controlled environment. There's usually fencing and security and boom gates and inductions and things to enter that site. So it's quite a controlled ground risk environment. And the flights, usually when you're doing the inspection, usually quite close, within 100 foot of that structure as well, which, and they could be operating 24 hours a day. So public safety, a little bit different. They're going for emergency response. So you're usually looking in populated areas. The flights are, well, for this concept of operations today, we're talking under 400 foot in type, but it is more populated ground environments where the other ones were not quite. So let's go to the next slide. Just go to the, okay, so we're going to talk about the safety case. So now we've picked those concept of operations, we've picked 3. However, the one thing we didn't pick, when we now know what we want to do, where we want to do it, or what sort of environment we want to do it, we still haven't picked the equipment. But basically, as I said, it's the same for every country. Where we need to start is we need to start looking at that risk. So if it is like a bow tie risk assessment, or like in Australia or New Zealand and some of the South Pacific islands, the aviation regulators utilise something called the SORA risk assessment, which is a framework that was developed by the Joint Associations of Rulemaking for Uncrewed Systems. So that's the sort of basis that we're going to be talking about today. So what we're going to do, if we flick to the next slide. So actually, you can flip back for a sec. So now what we're going to do, we're going to look and determine the risks to people on the ground and the risks to other air users. We know what the initial risk looked like, and then we need to look at ways that we can lower that risk as well. From there, that is when we get a specific integrity or assurance level, or I'll probably refer to it a bit as a SAIL level. And that SAIL level determines that a level of robustness that you will require for different elements of your operations. These steps will then assist you to understand what will be required for the standard of that hardware or software that you need to select. Over the next few slides, I'm going to briefly go over what that looks like. So we've got like the air risk. So as I said, I'm going to go through, I'm not going to do a whole SOAR presentation or risk assessment, but basically you calculate. So you look at what environments you're going to look at. So, you know, are you flying, like what we said, in a, you know, a rural area, near an uncontrolled airport, or are you flying in more of a populated area, are you below 500 foot above, or whatever that may be. So you have a look down those left-hand column, and then you get assigned what your air risk or air encounter level is going to be. So, you know, for example, we could pick one and we could say we're air risk, let's just start to say we're a B. So moving to the ground risk slide. So then we determine what the ground risk slide is. So let's just say we're going to talk the public safety case study. We might be flying, you know, a multi-rotor that's fairly small in a drone in the box, but we're going to fly over a populated ground environment. So our ground risk could start as a 5, where let's say we're talking about maybe we want to fly something a little bit bigger, an M300 on a mine site. We could be between a 1 or a 2, because we'd be over a controlled ground environment. We could claim that, or it'd probably be sparsely populated. So let's just use the, you know, the BVLOS over populated areas. So we'll start with a 5. So we've got an air risk of a B, and the initial ground risk of a 5. So we'll move to the next slide. So now we need to look at, as I mentioned, we need to mitigate those risks. And that's why knowing this process is really important even before you selected that aircraft or the box or the software that you're going to pick. Because let's just say there's different ways of you mitigating that risk. Let's just say the M2 there, you might put an ASTM standard parachute in Australia they accept to mitigate that risk to a -1 or a -2 for an M2. You know, if we're talking about the emergency services, we might be able to claim a high emergency response plan, so we might get a -1. We may look at different redundancies on the systems, or the way the software geofences to claim a lower mitigation for M1. So there's all different ways, and that's what we would look at. So, for example, let's add an ASTM parachute and go for a -2, and let's, you know, it's emergency services, so let's claim a -1 for the emergency response plan. So then that's -3. So we started off with that initial of a 5, and we might be able to minus that down to a to 2. Do you want to go to the next slide? So we join that together really quickly. So we've gone down to, say, look at 2, let's just say even a 3 if we didn't like take so many mitigations, and then you look at a B, so you would say that we're a SAIL 2. We'll just leave it as a SAIL 2 for the moment. So then now we know we're a SAIL 2 because we've joined our ground risk that's been mitigated, and we've looked at our air risk and tried to mitigate that to lower, but we didn't need to because it was already fairly low. And then we get a SAIL 2. What that means then, safety objectives are given. So the next 3 slides are just quick examples of what safety objections. We'll just leave it here for a second. So if we get a SAIL 2, we'll go to the next slide. We'll just leave it here for a sec. So what that is, so where it's an O, that's optional. Low is, L's low robustness, medium is medium, high is high robustness. Optional. Low is usually a self-assessment. Medium is some form of assessment or proof, some data proof, where high is sometimes a third-party certification or assessment. So that's why it's crucial to try to lower that, because you can then understand what you require. Let's just say we ended up at a SAIL 4, everything's high, so we're going to need to only get equipment or pick an airframe or software that's got some form of certification or, you know, being third-party assessed in many elements. Whereas SAIL 2, it's more feasible, a lot of it's low, so it's just providing data or, you know, or optional requirements. So the safety objectives go through, we can just flick through the next few slides just to give an example. So we've got the technical, we've got, you know, training, looking at the operator, communications, how your procedures are. So there's many different elements of how that creates, and those guidance of what we've done, it can be found in the SORA, in the annexes of the JARA SORA. So then that gives you the guidance of what you are going to require to get it through a regulatory framework. And then that helps you, because then you know what aircraft or what software or what attachments that you're going to need to do. So we can flick to the next slide. Next one. One more. Perfect. So earlier I mentioned what I was doing with Hover, but look, after many years of working with clients, I found that there was a market need to solve a problem for the industry. So early this year, I co-founded a company called C3 Drones and Robotics. And as you can see from this picture, the drone in the box is just one small part of a successful, highly autonomous drone programs. So now when we look at most of those, standard concept of operations and build a fit for purpose application for our clients, that then they can either lease or buy the package outright as well. So when we're looking at a whole package, what are we looking for when we're selecting? Obviously, there's the hardware, so the drone, the sensors, the ground control station, the remote ops setup, software. We're looking for, planning, control, data management, compliance, also the additional safety equipment. So we've just said, what are we going to need to add to make this safe? So, and to get it through that regulatory approval. So we might need that parachute, a detect and avoid or some form of radar system. We might need lights on it, ADS-B, VHF radios. We might be using that to mitigate some of the air risk. We also need to look at the communications requirements for that command control and communications as well. Site infrastructure is just as important. How are we going to set it up there? Is the water going to drain off? We need fencing, we need signage, we need the whole communication set up, we need weather stations. And basically what the packages that we're trying to develop pulls it all together, and we make sure that they meet those regulatory requirements for those concept of operations, if it's here in Australia or any jurisdiction around the world. And then one of the most important thing is you've selected so many different equipment, we've got to make sure it's all integrated together so it's a smooth operation as well. So I'll go to the next slide. So what we've created, I think you're missing a slide. That's fine. It was one of the ones I sent back later. Don't stress. Oh yeah, that one, selection criteria, perfect. So what we've created, and please note this is an example. I haven't given, I don't want to, what we usually do then is, go to a concept of operation. Let's say mining. You know what, you've been using M300s for a while. You love that P1 camera. You usually want RTK. What else do you want? So we look at what you require, where public safety might be looking at something. They probably want a speaker. They want lights. They want all of these other requirements. They might want a zoom camera, where infrastructure might be zoom camera as well. So we look at what they're going to need. We also look at public safety. Do we need them to, be operating 100% of the time? Do we need them to land and go straight back up, or have two options like some of the counter drone systems, or battery swapping, or if it's fine, mine sites don't often need to go up straight away. So can it come down and just charge normally? So we look at that, what those requirements are. We look at what safety features it's already integrated. How can, with the software, can it have, is it already integrated with those systems? Can we control that speaker? How are we going to talk if we've got that on that drone? So we look at all of that and develop the packages. So let's just say it is, an M300 RTK in a Hexatronics box with, all of that we sort of rate, and we work that out for that concept of operation to make sure we're selecting that right criteria or the right equipment that will still get through the regulatory pathway for you. So we'll jump, to this one. So, no, next one. Yep, perfect. Look, we'll finish up soon, because I know Charles is going to do a little presentation as well. So we've now gone through the concept of operations. We've looked at that air and the ground risk. We have determined what specific assurance and integrity level or the SAIL level that we need. We've now been able to define what safety objectives will follow to meet that risk of that job, which has helped us select all the equipment we require for the job. From there, we look at some of the outputs, so the operational procedures, like actually how are you going to make this work, emergency procedures, HMI assessment, that human-machine interface, emergency response plan, maintenance procedures. Like sometimes your box is out there, it could be for 6 months. Like, how are you managing those maintenance? Like, does it need to be checked for dust? Does it need to be, like, how long do the batteries actually last? And also communications plans. So there's some of the outputs we put together. The human-machine interface is pretty an interesting one. And even if your concept of operation now, look, you start by flying one drone at one time. As you move forward, we're going to want to fly 20 drones. Like, that was my vision from one of those earlier slides. Like, we want to do that. So it's important to look at how that software is going to manage that in the future. Like, are we going to need 10 remotes, or are we going to need 10 different laptops to fly that? So we're going to look at how that person or one person will eventually manage all of these operations as well. Communication. And that's it, I think. Next slide. Perfect.
So great, Jackie. It was very informative, and I am sure our audience now has an idea about what framework to follow when they are trying to or applying for a waiver. So I think we can go go over Achal's presentation now, and then we can get back to questions. So meanwhile, anybody from audience, if you have any questions, please feel free to enter them in the chat window, and we'll be addressing them towards the end. Thank you. Achal,
Great. Great, Jackie. That was a great session. I assume a lot of people would have questions as they are getting started with their operations, so we'll take them by the end of the session. Let me give you a quick overview to the audience. So, hi everybody, this is Achal. I'm going to talk about FlightNow as well as specifically the platform and the features which are enabling BVLOS operations around the globe. So, as you may know, FlightNow is focused on providing you the entire enterprise autonomy software to automate your drone in the box operations. You can choose the right drone in the box, and we provide the entire software to automate it. And as well as it helps you set up the entire command and control center for autonomous drones. What I'm going to talk about is the BVLOS operation aspect as well as the app library that we are building. So moving to the next slide. Let's look at this diagram really close. So this is what we've been building from last 6 to 7 years, where we focused on building the right hardware adapters, build the entire platform where we can manage different kind of drones, different kind of docking stations, payload, cameras, parachute, any other additional payloads that you're looking to integrate with your drone. And then we also started integrating all the docking stations and charging pads, so you could have a fully automated drone in the box systems. Now, the FlightNow platform provides you all the drone adapters, payload managers. It has all the intelligent modules for the drone to precisely land inside the drone, integrate with collision avoidance on the drone, object tracking, as well as on the other part have cloud connectivity where you can have remote control, fleet management, and live HD video feed and telemetry. So which allows you to have remote situational awareness, as well as you can control the drone remotely from anywhere at ultra low latency. Moving to the advanced modules, you can, of course, have drone-in-the-box integration, logging, AI detection, mission planning, gimbal control, thermal camera integration. These are some high-level modules which allows you to have your use case specific needs, which could be addressed here. And then we, of course, provide the APIs and SDK along with all the security and authentication layer. Now, this is where it starts getting more interesting for BVLOS operations, because folks who are actually focused on the use case as well as the reason why they're deploying, they would like to integrate specific technologies, like it could be a specific UTMs, it could be integration with onward parachute, it could be a beacon that you want to integrate on the drone for nighttime flying, or it could be the entire sense and avoid system which you're looking to integrate. So the APIs allow users to have these kind of additional integrations done, and we are integrating a lot of applications on the App Store, so you could have it right off the shelf on FlightNow. There have been also cases where you need integration with weather systems, right? So not only the systems which are there with your docking stations, but also the cloud systems where you need live data as well as forecast if you're scheduling, planning the missions. So the API platform, or this open drone in the box platform, would not only allow you to create your specific applications like workflows, plus also enable your BVLOS additional requirements for sense and avoid, collision avoidance, parachute, ADSB, weather, etc. So this is where what the diagram tells you, that it's a layered approach where you have your hardware, you have the platform, and then now we are providing all the APIs. So these things could be integrated during your operations. So moving to the next slide, let's look at the diagram. So now the essential components are, of course, your drone in the box system, your drone. It could have weather systems attached with the drone in the box solution. It could have sense and avoid systems attached to this, as well as it is communicating to the cloud, so you can get all that data access on the dashboard, where you're able to see the live operations, plans, schedule missions live on the dashboard. Moving to the next slide. This is where we give you all the options, where you can have the docking stations of your choice. So FlightNow already supports 15 plus docking stations from different manufacturers around the globe, and has support a wide range of drones based on Ardu Pilot, EX4, and DJI. We are also now integrated with DJI Dock, which is coming soon, and which will be one of the popular drone in the box solution, where everybody looking to deploy that for specific use cases like security, inspection, etc. But you could, of course, have a docking station today itself by a lot of our partners like Hextronics, iDeploy, Haisha, Escort, Counter Drone, who are providing docking stations for your other drones like your Mavic 2s and Mavic 3s, M300, and other drones as well. So how is FlightNow enabling safety in BVLOS ops? Let's take a deeper dive. So I'm going to talk about specific features that we are building, which allows your operations to be very safe, since you would be far away from the docking station and the drone which is flying, and you're connected remotely. So the first one that I want to talk about, can you go to the next slide, are the fail safes. So of course, fail safes have been there. That is how the drones got evolved, where you knew that if you're flying a drone really far, you can press a return to home button and the drone would come back and land. But as we are evolving and having these drone in the box systems which are really far, and you're operating them remotely, and it could be one to many, where you could have many drones and docking stations in the air in one time, we had to add more fail safes as well as design fail safes for drone in the box operations. So FlightNow offers number of fail safes and mechanism to aid to safety and control emergency landing, events where the vehicle control is lost, etc. So in a quick snapshot, you can see that in the settings, we have a lot of different fail safes. So the first two are the standard one, what happens in the low battery, what happens in the critical battery. With the low battery one, we had to design a module where instead of returning back to the home location, it can return to the docking station, and it could be automated workflow where the docking station could open, the drone can trigger precision landing and land inside the box, and docking station could close. So the low battery now also have RTDS, that is something, the return to docking station. We'll also talk about the safe location in the next one, but low battery also has options like return to docking station, safe location, hover, or continue the mission. So it is totally user configurable depending upon what kind of SOPs and permissions you have got to fly there. Moving to the drone LT link clause, this is completely new. Sorry, can we go to the site? Yeah, drone LT link clause, where you could have what happens if you have 4G LT link clause. Now, the current drone systems do not provide any functionalities like that, because you're flying like with a pilot on the ground. Now, this is where your docking station is connected to your internet, either over LT or it could be Ethernet, and there could be a thing where you could lose the internet connection on the docking station. Now, what happens in that situation? Now, in that case, yeah, the drone can trigger return to safe location. Now, again, this is user configurable. If you tap on that button, then you can get the entire menu. But RTSL is the return to safe location. So what FlightNow does, it saves a specific location. It provides you an interface where you can always configure a safe location. In case I lose all the connectivity, what should happen? Should the drone continue to do that mission and trigger return to safe location, or it should just immediately go to the safe location? So these are predefined locations that you can set through the dashboard, and drone would come and land on the safe location near the docking station. Now, a lot of drone systems also rely on RC, where the drone is connected to the docking station over RC link. So we extended that functionality to FlightNow, where you can have return to safe location. if the drone loses connectivity through the docking station. The next one is FlightNow link clause. This is a little bit unique one, which is not available in any other softwares because they are not designed for drone in the box operation. So FlightNow link clause, which we envision that when you're flying, you could have your internet connectivity get lost at your command center. Now, if you say have 5 drones in the air and you lose connectivity or there's a certain power outage at your command center, you could of course have multiple command centers for backup where they can get access, but you could also have a fail-safe where if FlightNow is not connected, the system would detect it and all the drones would return back to the safe location or return back to the docking station as configured in the dashboard. And the last but not the least is precision landing timeout. Now, in some cases, which is far off, 1 in thousands, where if you have, say, if something happened to docking station, something got stuck, the drone is not able to land. In that case, after a certain trigger, the drone can hover or return back to the safe location. So we provide the entire list of action as which is user configurable. So depending upon where you're operating, you can set that. You can of course follow our guides as well as the training program that we have, which allows you to have set the right actions for your use case or the geography where you are deploying drone in the box systems. Moving on to the fail-safe extension, yeah, one thing that we now added is the weather fail-safe events in action. Now, weather plays a very important role, and it also comes during all your application process. What happens in different kind of weather condition? So this dashboard, piece of dashboard in the settings, we also have a settings which allows you to set weather station fail-safes. So you can trigger all the weather fail-safes based on operations, based on the weather data from the dashboard. So what happens if there is a high wind speed and my drone is not rated and drone is struggling to fly? Should it immediately trigger return back to the docking station? What if it's a heavy rainfall and my drone is not rated to fly in that kind of a rain? So if it's already in the air, you could immediately trigger return to docking station. If it's already inside and drone is suppose you're flying something like Mavic 2s or Mavic 3, which can fly in light rain, but you cannot sustain heavy rains, then you would not want to fly the drone in that condition. So the docking station would not open if the threshold from the weather station is high enough and you have set that from the heavy rainfall. As well as there could be SOPs where if you do not have a weather station link, then you cannot do the operation. So you could have those kind of fail-safes set. So we are including these kind of fail-safes with the weather stations, which come with the docking station, as well as if we are using a third-party weather stations, all those weather stations could be integrated with the platform, and the same fail-safes could be used with your own weather station. In the next slide, let's talk about geofences. So geofences, of course, are a very critical component where before flying the drones, you can set a geofence, which is a polygon, or it could be a cylindrical. So it could be a 3D geofence where you can set the boundary as well as the height, and the drone would not go out of that area. You can see the green zone where it flies and the red zone which has the warning. We also have an adaptive control. So if the drone is in the speed and it's going towards the geofence, mostly it does not happen during the mission because you set the mission, and if you're setting a mission waypoint outside geofence, the mission would not start. But in some cases like public safety security, where you take a manual control and you're actually looking at something and the pilot could miss out in a way that where they are flying and they might not be allowed to fly after certain area because there could be a private property or some hazard there. So geofences really help pilots to remote pilots to fly the drone and stay in the area. As well, if they're flying with the speed, the geofence have adaptive control where it would automatically start deaccelerating the drone as soon as it reaches there. For some glitch, if the drone gets out of the geofence, maybe because of heavy winds or something that happened, you would set a fail-safe action where the drone would come back and land to the safe location, home location, or the docking station, which is again user configurable. Moving on to the next one is the corridor fly zones. Now, this is a very unique feature that we have introduced as an enterprise add-on, which allows your drone to only fly in a corridor. So suppose you're doing a highway patrol, or you're doing a pipeline, you're doing a railway line, where you know you need to fly, you just have a right of way to fly on that area because there could be other things outside where you could have private properties and you're not allowed to fly, but you have permission to fly along a railway line or a highway. Now, corridor fly zones allows you to set a corridor, gives ability to prevent drone from entering airspace outside that corridor. Now, what's different? What is different here than the geofence? The difference here is if you're flying a mission, right? It would only fly in this area. So, say if you get an alarm triggered between waypoint 2 and 3, the drone will automatically follow this path. It will not follow a straight path because you have given a right of way to only fly this through this region. And most of the safe landing or the return to home happens in a straight line. Now, this causes issues because you could have private properties, you could have buildings where drone cannot take a straight path from 3 to 1. Now, in that case, if you have a corridor, the return to home or return to docking station would happen through this corridor. So this kind of a corridor fly zones allows you to actually have operations on a linear asset and ensures that the drone is only going to remain in that area, be it you're flying manually, flying a mission, triggering an alarm and sending a drone to that location, or returning back to the docking station. The drone will remain inside. So this is the corridor fly zone feature, which is available as an enterprise add-on in FlightNow. Moving to the next one, let's talk about apps and integration for workflow automation. So we have been partnering with a lot of companies for data logging, VMS systems, UTM, private cloud storage like AWS, Azure, etc. And this has been done through the API platform where we are integrating a lot of different stuff, as well as you can take access to the APIs and build your own apps on FlightNow. So let's take a quick example. Next slide. So this is one of the things where we're integrating UTMs for airspace awareness, where you can get that data and you can submit your flight plans. You can see all the advisories, and we're creating app with UTMs to see that data on the dashboard. Next slide. We are integrating parachute recovery systems. So these are systems where you have onboard integration. So you need onboard APIs, or you can use a ready off-the-shelf integration. So for example, we already have integration with AVSS, one of the most popular parachutes available for M300s, M30s for that launch. Now, these parachute systems are integrated well with the onboard computer with the bigger drones. So in case of any loss of connectivity or emergency situation, we have built protocols which allows the parachute systems to have priority, where it could automatically cut off the motor systems and release the parachute, which is very important for operations where you're flying over people or in situations where you cannot afford to crash drone in a hard situation. So let's get to the next slide. Let's look at the weather status and update. So this is where we have integrated Windy. So if you can play this quick video, we have integrated Windy inside the dashboard in the App Store. So where you can get all the weather forecasts right inside as you're flying and operating your mission. So you have all the options available here. You can, of course, click on the Windy icon and open the entire app. So this is where you can actually have your own dashboard or own app built and to be listed on the App Store. So Windy provides you all the weather forecast during your planning and missions. Next is the detect and avoid, where you can have identify cooperative or non-cooperative aircraft. So this is where we are partnered with Iris Automation with their CASA G systems, which has a ground-based 360-degree cameras jig, which detects the aircrafts, and they have strong deep learning modules, which allows them to detect aircrafts. And we have done the integration. So in this dashboard, the red dot that you see is the ground station to see the aircrafts. Blue is the drone, and orange is the aircraft which is detected. And as soon as an aircraft is detected, you get the notification on the dashboard, and operator can take a manual control, or if you already have an SOP which is given, we have the permission for that, we can have an automated routine when drone can lower down to a certain altitude automatically or have certain actions done based on the risk mitigation. So this is regarding the sense and avoid. Let's move to the next slide and see if you have something there. Yeah, I think we are all done with it. So we spoke about features where you have drone fail safes, you have command control fail safes, you have link loss in terms of RC, battery, precision landing. We also discussed about weather fail safes. We also discussed about parachutes. UTMs, apps that you can build like weather stations integration or online weather system integrations, and also the sense and avoid systems which are now available in the market to be integrated. So from the FlightNow side, we're trying to integrate all those things together, so you get our entire toolkit for BVLOS from the technical aspects, of course, where you need these features to prove that your operations are always going to be safe and reliable. And then, of course, you can closely work with Jackie to get all those approvals for the application process. So that is where we partner together with Hover UAV and C3. With our technological features as well as their expertise in BVLOS, we are able to closely work together and help users, customers have BVLOS operations. So with that, I'll open it up for Q&A. I assume a lot of people would have questions, and feel free to put them in the chat box, and we'll be happy to take them.
Great. Thank you very much, Achal. That was very informative about how, again, FlightNow and software also plays a very important part in getting these approvals. So, yeah, everyone feel free to type your questions in the chat window, and we can take them one by one. So I got a question earlier. I think this will be for Jackie. So Jackie, can you help us understand or tell us about your experience with getting BVLOS approvals in your region? Basically, how long does the process take depending on the use case and so on?
Yeah, look, I mean, it changes over time. So I think every regulator around the world would say they're under-resourced. The drone industry is moving so quickly. Look, it used to be a lot longer. We're sort of seeing some BVLOS applications take between 2 and 4 months, or that's if the application is really quite straightforward or quite a low risk, and all the applications put together. Obviously, if all of that information that I said that you needed, and all of those screenshots of how all those fail-safes work, the regulator need to understand how it's all going to be safe. It'll take a lot longer. So yeah, anywhere between I'd say between 2 and 6 months in Australia. New Zealand's a little bit longer at the moment. Probably got a little bit less resources. So we're sort of seeing that it depends on if you've already got a current application in. It could take 6 to 12 months, or it could take actually a bit longer in some of those areas as well.
Right. And another question we have is, can pilots and POCs be carried out before getting these waivers?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Can pilots and proof of concepts be carried out with drone-in-a-box solution before acquiring or getting the waiver?
Yeah, look, I mean, there's definitely ways of doing it in Australia and New Zealand, and actually many parts of the world. It's a lot easier to get extended visual line of sight or BVLOS with a visual observer. So that's sometimes while you're waiting for that long, remote operations BVLOS to come through. I know CASA and New Zealand, they offer sort of that extended visual line of sight, which can be Australia-wide or country-wide. And we do it so class 2. So you could actually practice all your procedures flying remotely, but still have a visual observer on that site to help with the clearing the air and the ground risk. So yes, you can definitely practice all the procedures. If you don't have extended visual line of sight, you should still get out there and practice visual line of sight. It's your systems, your procedures, how are you going to do your emergency response plans? You should have all of that, how you want to collect the data, how does the data management, how does it all flow, can be done visual line of sight first, because that allows you then to, refine those procedures before you actually have to do a flight test with that regulator.
Right. Thanks, Jackie. Thanks for that. Achal, if you would like to share your experience, so can you help us understand in how many regions FlightNow is already BVLOS approved, and what use cases are these customers targeting?
Right. So FlightNow is already approved in about 7 to 8 countries where people are doing BVLOS operations. We've seen different kind of things that regulators require. It's not a single thing. It's all, but the underline is to actually have safe operations. So then, as Jackie mentioned, it's all about how you're ensuring regulators that your operations are really safe, reliable, and you're mitigating all the risk. So that is where we are focused on. So we can provide the right set of features, as well as all the SOPs or the SORA guidelines, everything that are required, so we can prove that this is really, really safe and reliable. We have seen the process where, of course, people get the docking station, they have extended visual line of sight, or they fly with a visual observer, and then they get to that process of applying for a BVLOS. So, Jackie, my question would be, and maybe the audience would have the same question. A lot of folks are not looking for drone in the box to operate, right? Suppose they take a decision today to buy a drone in the box, right? How is going to look like for them, right? What are the steps that they would take, and how our UAV can help them, C3 can help them to get there, where they can have a docking station deployed on a mining site or a construction site or a pipeline or any use case, how it's going to look like, and how our UAV can help.
Sorry, it's bad hearing, but yeah, so it's just that process of really understanding that concept of operations first. So, look, sometimes, it's a phone call quickly to us to say, this is what we want to do, this is where we want to do it. And I'll be like, right, you know what, really quickly from that, you're going to be this risk level. You're going to want to mitigate it with this, this, and this. So make sure, what does the platform do the task you need to do, and does it have the right safety equipment, and go from there. But I would always look at that risk profile first. Not one piece of hardware always solves every one of your problems. So if you've got, large international operations or different, use cases on a mine site, you might have 3 or 4 different products. So yeah, it's defining each of those concept of operations.
Great. Got it.
Thanks, Jackie. And another question is there a certain criteria or prerequisites for hardware to be compliant for BVLOS in Australia?
Yeah, and I think that's sort of what I was sort of trying to go through with those safety objectives. There are prerequisites depending on that level of risk. So the higher level of risk, the higher level of prerequisites. So obviously there's not many aircraft. I think there's only the one at the moment that is fully certified. So I should say drone. So yeah, I mean, the higher level of the risk, the higher level of robustness of the technical and the software specifications that you're going to require. Hey, I have a question as well, but I was trying to type it and I haven't managed to get it.
Sure.
And now I feel really bad because Charlotte, they haven't had time to vet my question. One of the questions I get asked by Charlotte all the time is, right, we start to see all these drone in the boxes. Obviously, some of the drone in the box companies have their own software. Some of it's quite basic and things like that. So if they go and purchase it from, a supplier here in Australia or New Zealand or somewhere else like that, but they want to use your platform, how do they go about it? Because it obviously comes sometimes with free software.
Right.
How do they go about it? Is it already integrated with it? Do they have to install it and things like that?
Right. So we already have about 15 plus docking stations, as I said, but there could be other docking stations which are coming up with their own software. But we understand that these software could be basic, and people would like to have a single platform where they can manage all their operations, where they could have their DJI docks, their Extronics to other docking stations, other drones as well. So we provide the APIs and SDKs to do that. So for docking station, we have something called Dock OS, so that an operating system. So they need to install 2 hardware pieces, which we can help them. So these are the edge kits which are installed inside. And then it has to be integrated with the SDK. Now, either it is a docking station manufacturer which does the integration, or they provide us a documentation, and we can have add-on build or adapter build to talk to that docking station. And similar to the drone, like we have a dock OS, we have Flight OS, which is for the drone. So these are lower level operating systems which run on the docking station and the drone. And that is how you can integrate a third-party drone in the box system with FlightNow, and you can use it with the same dashboard, where you can have a hybrid fleet of drone in the box systems inside your dashboard.
Perfect. As I said, I love hanging out with you guys because your vision's the same as mine.
Cool. Yeah, I think we're about time. Any other questions that anybody has? So I run a quick poll. About 75% people are, of course, not flying BVLOS here. So it's a new domain for everybody to get started. We have a new question coming up here. How does somebody doing BVLOS with the drone in the box system communicate on airband radio if necessary?
Perfect. Yeah, that's one of my favorite topics as well. Look, I mean, hopefully in the future you might not need to, because there'll be UTM or other systems, use-based systems that might be out there. But at the moment, we are utilising still VHF communications to mitigate some of that air risk. What we've had to do is create. I mean, there was some military, radio over IP, but we've actually gone C3 created sort of a communication systems as well that sits there that it comes through like on a Ready Talk and a dashboard that you can communicate. So if I have a drone in all parts of the country again, I can actually know where that radio call's coming in from and communicate with that radio traffic over the internet. And that's just a small portable device with an antenna that sits at that site as well.
So is it like a device which sits can sit with the box?
Yeah, it can sit in the office, or it can sit just, in the fencing area where the box is as well.
Okay.
But it will then manage that site, and then all the radio, it's over IP. So that means that if I'm sitting here in the office, I can actually just radio if someone's on the other side of the country, and I can communicate with that air traffic and let them know what I'm doing. So it helps as a mitigator as well. So I think that's something, VHF communication, I think is still something that's probably going to be around for the next year or two, because I don't think many countries are sort of that far ahead in other mitigations. I mean, when you start using some of the CASA, like some of the iris automation stuff that Ashal mentioned, or some other systems, you might be able to use that as a mitigator instead of the VHF communications.
Got it. Right. I think we have one more question that would be for me, that is like data link security considered in the risk matrix, particularly with cloud, software as a service, and hardware decisions. So from the software side, we have several modules which are built in. So we have token-based authentication, we have end-to-end encryption, we have AES 128-bit encryption there, as well as you have all the security layers built inside the software. We are also going towards all the certifications where you have SaaS level certifications available, so you are able to deploy these solutions without any kind of presumptions or any kind of concerns. In some situations where you are looking to deploy it on a specific private site, you could also offer an on-premise kind of a deployment where everything could run locally on a local server, and no data is going out from your system. Of course, you would need internet for your fetching your Google Maps or any kind of internet data that you need, like weather forecast or license activation, etc. But you could also have a on-premise installation.
Thanks, Achal. Thank you for that. I think we are about time. So, any closing thoughts, Jackie, in your end?
No, it's just absolutely lovely hanging out with you, Michelle and Angie. No, it's great. Look, if anyone has any questions, please reach out. As I said, I really just want to help companies move forward and see Drone in the Box and actually finally start to see all those cost benefits that we've sort of hear so much about, and really push that industry further forward.
Great. Yeah, sounds good. I think if you guys want to know more, you can, of course, connect with us on LinkedIn. We can probably put it on the chat, or you can find us on LinkedIn and connect with us. Or you can visit our respective website at HowAV or FlightNow.com and drop us in a message, and we'd be happy to help you. So, yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Jackie, for all your time to speak with everybody and join a session. It is always fun to do this. We look forward to doing more sessions like this with the community. Now, yeah, that's the next step.
Ashal, the next one you can come to Australia and we'll do it in person.
Yeah.
We'll do some live case studies or something.
Right. Yep, absolutely. Let's look forward to that. Yeah, with that, I was just want to move with the second part. So yeah, we would have the second session coming week. So feel free to join that or share that message and join. So we're doing a 2-part series. This was part 1. We look forward to seeing you for part 2. Thank you so much, Jackie. Thanks again for your time. Yeah, look forward to having more sessions together. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, everyone. Thank
Bye.
you, Jackie. Thank you, Achal.